Imagine coming home one day to find the locks on your house changed, not by a stranger, but by your own family. What would you do if the very people you trusted tried to take away the last piece of your mother's legacy? Before we dive into this gripping tale, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. My name is Jack, and I'm a 28-year-old single guy living in the house my mom left me when she passed away 5 years ago. It's a modest 3-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood, not flashy, but it's home. More than that, it's a piece of my mom's legacy. She worked her entire life to provide stability for me, and this house was her final gift. Growing up, my mom was the only consistent parent I had. She wasn't perfect, but she was always there when I needed her. My dad, on the other hand, checked out after the divorce. He remarried quickly, and his new wife, Linda, became the center of his world. Her daughter, Savannah, was treated like royalty. Savannah is 25 now and pregnant. I don't have a problem with her being pregnant, that's not the issue. The problem is she's one of those people who assumes the world owes her something. Her mom and my dad have been feeding that ego of hers since we were young. If Savannah wants something, she gets it, whether it's a new car, expensive vacations, or random stuff she decides she wants. They bend over backward to keep her happy. I've kept my distance from all of that. I see my dad here and there, but I've made it clear I like my space. The house is my sanctuary where I can live my life without anyone interfering. I've got a decent job, some good friends, and a straightforward routine. I'm not rolling in cash, but I'm stable. That's more than a lot of people can say these days. For now, it's just me in the house, and honestly, I like it that way. No roommates, no drama, just peace and quiet. Exactly what I needed after my mom passed away. Reddit. Now, back to Savannah. A few months ago, her boyfriend, some guy named Tyler, left her. Honestly, I could see it coming from a mile away. He always seemed like the type to bail when things got real. Savannah didn't seem too broken up about it, though. From what I heard, she went straight back to her mom and my dad, where she was immediately babied and spoiled all over again. They cooked for her, bought her maternity stuff, and basically treated her like she was made of glass. The Guardian. I didn't think much of it at first, that's their business, not mine. But then, out of nowhere, my dad calls me up and says he wants to talk. This isn't something he does often, so I figured it must be important. I head over to their place, and as soon as I walk in, I can tell something's up. My dad and his wife are sitting at the kitchen table, and Savannah's there too, rubbing her belly, trying to remind everyone she's pregnant. They started off with some meaningless small talk, the kind where you know they're stalling. My dad asked how work was going, and his wife nodded along like she cared. But it didn't take long before they cut to the chase. My dad started saying Savannah needed a stable place to live because their house was too cramped with the baby coming. Before I could even respond, his wife jumped in, her tone sharp but coated in fake concern. Well, she said, since you're living alone in that big house and you're not married or anything, it just makes sense for Savannah to move in. She needs space for the baby, and you're not exactly tied down to anything serious. You could easily find something smaller and more practical for yourself. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a declaration, like they'd already decided this was the plan and I just needed to fall in line. My dad chimed in, saying they'd even looked into some apartments for me, as if doing the research made their demand more reasonable. I couldn't believe it. They were clearly throwing hints, screaming that my life didn't matter, that my house was just a spare room they could shuffle people into when it suited them. The entitlement was overwhelming, as if being unmarried or childless meant I wasn't really using my life or my home the right way. At first, I thought I must have misheard them. I mean, who says something like that? But no, they were dead serious. Apparently, they'd been planning this for a while, just waiting for the right time to bring it up. I told them straightforward, no. Obviously, this house isn't just a piece of property to me, it's my home, and it's one of the last connections I have to my mom. The idea of giving it up, especially for someone like Savannah, was just absurd. I tried to explain that, but they weren't hearing it. They kept going on about how family helps family and how I don't really need all that space since I don't have a family of my own. It was like talking to a wall. No matter what I said, they just kept pushing. Savannah barely said anything during the conversation, but the smug look on her face said it all. She was confident they'd wear me down and get what they wanted. That's how it's always been with her. She's used to people caving in and giving her exactly what she wants. At one point, I turned to her and asked, "Savannah, do you really want to sit in my house? I mean, seriously, this is my home, my space. Why don't you take one of those apartments you guys so helpfully looked up? You've already done the legwork. Why is it suddenly ridiculous for you to use those options but okay to take mine?" She just blinked at me, like the concept of her being the one to compromise was completely foreign. Her mom jumped in with her sugar-coated voice, saying, "Oh honey, you don't understand. Savannah needs stability. An apartment won't provide the same comfort and space for her and the baby." I laughed bitterly. So my stability doesn't matter? My comfort doesn't count? You guys are unbelievable. You walk in here demanding I uproot my entire life for Savannah's sake, and you expect me to just roll over and say yes? Savannah didn't flinch, just sat there with her arms crossed, that smug look plastered on her face like she'd already won. She wasn't even trying to engage, leaving her mom and my dad to do all the dirty work for her. It was obvious she didn't think she needed to explain herself. In her mind, it wasn't a request, it was an inevitable outcome. Her mom jumped in, her voice sharp and condescending. "It's not about your comfort. This is about what's best for the family. Savannah is bringing a new life into this world. Don't you think that's a little more important than your need for space? You're a grown man, you don't need a big house all to yourself. It's selfish to hold on to something that could give her and the baby a better start in life." I stared at her, stunned by the sheer audacity. Selfish? Are you serious right now? You think I'm selfish for keeping what my mom left me? This isn't just some space I'm clinging to, this is my home, where I've built my life. And you're sitting here telling me I should just hand it over like it's nothing. My dad sighed, clearly frustrated, and decided to jump in. "We're not asking you to give it up forever," he said, as if that somehow made it better. "Just think of it as helping Savannah get back on her feet. Once she's stable, maybe she can move out, and you can figure out something else for yourself. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone." After the locksmith changed my locks back and I stood guard on my own doorstep, something hardened in me. I wasn't just dealing with a pushy family anymore. I was facing people who saw my home, my mother's legacy, as a chess piece in their selfish little game. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the hallway with the anger still burning under my skin. My home was supposed to be my safe space. And now, I felt like a trespasser could be waiting at every turn. I called my lawyer first thing in the morning. I gave him the whole story, every visit, every manipulative phone call, every text dripping with passive aggression. I told him about the lock change and the note. He listened, asked questions, jotted everything down. Then he leaned back and hit me with it. "Jack," he said, "your father already contacted a lawyer months ago. He was asking how he might contest your mother's will." That line hit harder than the locked door. He explained it hadn't gone far, nothing had been officially filed. But my dad had actively been trying to find a way to take the house from me. Quietly. Sneakily. Like he was waiting for just the right moment to swoop in and make it look like I was the one being unreasonable. I was stunned. And then, I was furious. This wasn't just about Savannah. This was about entitlement. About power. About my father believing he still had some say over my life, like I was still a kid who had to fall in line. I showed up at his house unannounced. I rang the bell, and when he answered, his face barely flickered. No guilt. No shame. Just a faint, tired smile like this was all a big misunderstanding. I didn't waste time. "I know you tried to contest Mom's will," I said, my voice sharp. He blinked. Played dumb. "What are you talking about? Don't lie. You talked to a lawyer. You've been planning this since Savannah moved back in." He didn't deny it this time. Just said, "It's not what you think. I was just exploring options, for the good of the family." I almost laughed. You mean for Savannah? Not the family. He tried to talk circles around it, bringing up how big the house is, how I don't have kids, how Savannah needed a fresh start. I stood there listening, not because I wanted to hear excuses, but because I wanted to hear how deep the delusion went. You didn't even ask, I said. You went behind my back. You tried to take the one thing I have left of Mom. He said, it's not like that. But he couldn't even look me in the eye. That was when I really knew, I couldn't trust him. Not now. Not ever. Back home, I got to work. I contacted my lawyer again and made sure there were absolutely no loopholes in the will. I had the title re-verified. I added a monitoring service to flag any legal attempts to transfer ownership. I beefed up the cameras, changed all my passwords, moved important documents to a safe deposit box, and gave my lawyer full access. My house wasn't just a home anymore. It was a fortress. But Savannah didn't slow down. In fact, she doubled down, just like I knew she would. She started posting vague, dramatic messages on social media. Stuff like, being failed by family is the worst kind of heartbreak, and sometimes you have to fight for what you deserve. She didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. I started getting texts from distant cousins and old high school acquaintances, all playing the "can't you find a compromise" card. I said the same thing to all of them, no. They didn't live in this house. They didn't clean out Mom's room after she passed. They didn't wake up every day in a place that still smelled like her perfume, with the quilt she made me still folded at the end of my bed. They didn't know. The silence lasted for weeks. And just when I thought they'd finally moved on, I saw them on my security camera. My dad. Linda. Savannah. Savannah holding the baby in her arms like he was a golden ticket. They rang the bell, and I just stared at them through the screen. I should have walked away. But something made me open that door. Linda jumped in first, all smooth and fake. We've had time to reflect. We want to put this behind us, for the baby. For the family. We're giving you one last chance to do the right thing. Savannah chimed in next, her voice syrupy sweet and rehearsed. I want my son to grow up with his family. I want him to know his uncle. I know you can find it in your heart to do what's right. My dad stood there awkwardly, playing the middleman. We're not asking for much. Just a chance. This house, it's big enough. And you're young. You'll bounce back. I stared at them. I let the silence sit there long enough to get uncomfortable. And then I said, no. This is my house. It was left to me. I've told you no before. I'm telling you no again. And that's final. Linda snapped. You're being selfish. Savannah cried on cue. I can't believe you're doing this to your own family. My dad stayed quiet. I turned around, walked back into the house, and locked the door behind me. Then I did what I told them I'd do last time. I called the cops. They showed up 10 minutes later. Spoke to them calmly. Told them they were trespassing. Told them to leave. Watching them walk off the porch with police supervision didn't make me happy, it made me exhausted. But I knew I'd done the right thing. Later that night, I blocked all their numbers. Blocked them on every platform. Told mutual contacts I didn't want messages or updates. I wasn't just done with the house drama, I was done with them. They'd broken something that couldn't be fixed. And I was finally ready to move on. I stood by my window after the police drove off with my dad, Linda, and Savannah finally gone from my porch. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel strong. I just felt empty. Like all the air had been let out of the room. For weeks I'd been on high alert, watching my cameras, checking my doors twice, fielding drama from all sides, and now, suddenly, it was over. But not really. Not emotionally. Not in my head. Even though they hadn't gotten the house, they'd taken something from me. My peace. My sense of family. That sliver of belief I still held onto that maybe, just maybe, my dad would show up for me one day. It was gone. The next day, I made it official. I went to the bank, the county records office, and my lawyer's office. I added extra protections, registered a deed alert, signed a formal notice that no transactions on the property could proceed without my consent. I filed everything under my name, sealed tight. I even filed a trespassing notice. If they ever came back, I wouldn't need to call the police to explain. I just need to say one word: repeat offenders. Savannah had her baby. A boy. I didn't visit. I didn't send a gift. Didn't comment on the social media posts where she showed off her nursery or posted long captions about being abandoned by those who should love you most. She never said my name. But everyone knew. A few mutual friends reached out. Some tried to play peacemaker. You should just talk to them, Jack. Clear the air. But there was nothing to clear. You can't clear the air with people who watched you drown and asked you to hand over the life raft. So I cut ties completely. Changed my number. Left group chats. Stopped going to certain family events. People said I was cold. Bitter. Selfish. But they didn't know the full story. And honestly, I didn't owe them an explanation. My therapist said something that stuck with me. She said, "You don't need to keep toxic people close just because you share blood. Family is who respects your boundaries." That hit me hard. Because for the first time, I realized I'd been fighting not just to keep my house, but to prove my worth to people who had never really seen it. I focused on rebuilding. I started small. I painted the guest room. Not for Savannah. For me. I turned it into a reading room, with bookshelves and a big cozy chair. I started cooking again. Had friends over on Sundays. Played music in the house, loud and unashamed. I laughed again, real, belly-deep laughter that hadn't felt possible for months. One of my closest friends, Mia, suggested something wild. "You should throw a house party," she said. I stared at her. A party? After all this? She shrugged. Yeah. You kept the house. You won. Let's celebrate. And so, I did. I sent out invites. Kept it small, just people who had been there for me during everything. People who stood by me when it wasn't easy. The night of the party, I lit candles, opened all the windows, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt proud. Proud of the space. Proud of myself. We laughed, we ate, we shared stories. And when someone asked what made me fight so hard to keep the house, I told them the truth. This isn't just a house, I said. This is where I grieved my mom. Where I rebuilt myself after losing her. Where I finally learned that family doesn't get to take from you just because they think they can. That night, I stood in the backyard alone for a moment, looking up at the stars. And I whispered, "I kept it, Mom. I kept your home safe." It wasn't perfect. I still had moments of sadness, of anger, of disbelief. But I was healing. Slowly. Steadily. And I wasn't looking back. The house wasn't just my sanctuary now, it was a monument to everything I had overcome. Every hard boundary I set. Every no I stood by, even when it was hard. Every time I protected myself when no one else would. So if you're reading this and you're in the middle of a storm, if people are trying to make you feel guilty for protecting your peace, hear me when I say this. You are not wrong. You are not selfish. You are allowed to protect your space, your heart, your life. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to choose peace over obligation. And if the people around you don't understand that, they don't deserve your front door key. Thanks for sticking through all 3 parts of this story. If it resonated with you, if it reminded you of something you faced, drop a comment and let us know. Your story matters too. And hey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We've got more real, raw stories on the way. See you in the next one.